Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading Super Science by thatchickendude. Chapter 48, Attack of the Yakuza, Part 4. Animal Division. Hikiji was having the worst kind of luck against the Night Feeder. Since his quirk couldn't be used for offense, he had to rely solely on defense. The few offensive options he had couldn't work unless the person stood still, but that wasn't the case here. The Night Feeder was fast, and he couldn't even tell which direction it was coming from in the dark. Its footsteps were so quiet and quick. The moment he heard them and turned around, it was gone. However, it was a good thing that he had the quirk he did have. If not, he definitely would have been dead for a long time ago. The claws on this thing were so sharp that they were creating gash marks in the metal floor when it came in for a strike. He heard and felt the attack, turned, and saw nothing. Fear gripped his heart more tightly than it did before. In his time with the Yakuza, he had done many things that would make a normal person's heart beat uncontrollably. But he always remained still. He was the best in the business. But not this time. Now he was truly scared for his life, with a fear so old in his body that had been buried by years of evolution. Now he was scared, like a rat being tortured by the cat. The Night Feeder kept striking at the force field time and time again, but nothing made a single scratch. So long as Hikiji kept his concentration, his only source of protection would stay up. The Night Feeder changed tactics and stopped its quick attacks. It stood motionless in the dark and waited to put a sense of false security on him. When it saw that it worked, it immediately began to shriek out a horrible and high-pitched scream. The scream was constant, and his ears were bleeding. It was so bad that Hikiji couldn't hold his protection up, and once it fell, the last thing he saw was the Night Feeder's eyes and claws. Meanwhile, Rapper was not having an easy time with the cleverness, but having fun with the fight no less. This was the most excitement he had in a long time. At first, the huge T-Rex looking creature used its teeth to bite him, or his feet to kick or stomp on him. Rapper was surprised to see such a huge animal manage to jump any distance at all. But after taking a few blows from Rapper, blows that did nothing against its natural armor, the monster changed tactics. After circling Rapper and huffing out ash and embers, it began to run its tail against the ground several times. It flipped the tail into its mouth and used its specialized teeth and flame breath to superheat it. Once out of its mouth, it holds up its hot red tail and soars into the air. This creates an enamored Rapper, but only for a moment, when the monsters began to fling its red-hot tail around like a weapon. For something so big, it was agile. Rapper had to dance around its attacks, and could barely land any of his own. The ones he did were used to block the red-hot tail. He groaned in pain, and loved every second of it. He hadn't had a fight like this in ages. For once, his life was indeed on the line. If only he could have more fights like this. But he knew he had to beat this thing somehow. He wanted to give the blows back as hard as they were received. He wasn't able to break past its armor. As he tried to think of something, he saw something interesting happen in the darkness that was only lit by the tail. Its glow died down, and before he knew it, the tail cooled and hardened into a useless rock. "Ha! Looks like your weapon is useless now," he glared while pointing at the creature. To which it growled, turned around, and slammed him with its blunt tail. Rapper hit the wall hard and nearly went out until he saw something through the glazed eyes. The Glavenus threw the tail into its mouth and broke off the hardened recesses. When it pulled out, its tail was as sharp as it was once more. Rapper knew his current plan wasn't working, so he had to try a new approach. He formulated a new plan and concluded by saying aloud, "I just have to hit harder." The Glavenus roars back in return. The two of them charge at one another, and as Glavenus swings around its tail, Rapper ducks and hits the flare side where the metal meets the flesh. He punches with it all his might, breaking the monster's tail clean off. Glavenus falls to the ground, kicking and screaming in pain. Rapper takes opportunity to send a barrage of punches in his body and legs. This seems to do the trick as it fails to get up. As a last-ditch effort, it fires a ball of flames at the man, but he takes the hit. After charging out of the flames, he knocks it in the chin and then grabs it, spins it around, and, with all his strength, throws it at the divider wall. This causes Glavenus to fall unconscious and leave Rapper as the victor, covered in soot, burns, and cuts. He then turns to the divider wall and begins to pound on it, trying to break it. Cho's annoyed voice comes over the speaker in the now dark room, and she yells, "Cut that out, you gorilla. I'll just drop the damn walls. Sheesh." Meanwhile, behind the observation room, Hatsune was in shambles. He complained, "Oh man, I can't believe he managed to beat the Glavenus. I like it." Ignoring his complaint, Cho asked him, "How do you think he'll fare against the Night Feeder?" Hopefully, they both kill one another. But his smart friend who took it on and couldn't beat it, so his chances are looking pretty slim. Hatsune theorized as Cho dropped the divider wall. Back in the testing chamber, the wall fell, and in the dim darkness, he could barely make out the shape of his partner. He started to run up to him, excited, and exclaimed, "Hey, Hikiji, I just had that epic fight with a T-Rex that breathed fire and had a sword tail. It was..." He then stopped when he noticed something strange about him. He seemed to be walking funnily, almost like a baby with a full diaper. Stepping back a bit, he asked, "Hikiji?" Suddenly, something rolled off him and onto Rapper's feet. He rolled it over his foot and saw it to be a decapitated head of Hikiji. Getting into the defensive stance, he demanded, "You're not Hikiji. Who are you?" The body parts of his friends fell, and a set of sharp claws clicked and dragged against the metal floor until a set of blank eyes stared at him from the darkness. In a more cautious tone, he asked, "What are you?" The Night Feeder showed its glittering white teeth in the darkness, and then opened its mouth while charging at him with a roar. Rapper, for the first time in his life, felt genuine, unnatural fear, and he ran. Thinking quickly, he grabbed the down body of the Glavenus and threw it at the creature. From the sound of it, it worked, but it wouldn't be for long. So he looked around the dark room for something else to defend him, and remembered the broken tail. Frantically searching around for it in the dark, the Night Feeder broke free from the giant animal's body and sniffed out Rapper. When it spotted him, it ran towards him with killer intent. Just when it was about to pounce, Rapper found the tail and began to wildly whip it around until it got to the floor and caused sparks. The spark flashed before the monster's eyes, and it retreated in fear, making a scary sound. Rapper noticed this. An idea came to mind. So he kept using the tail to strike up sparks and light up his area, giving him time to see where the Night Feeder was and trying to corner it. After this game of cat and mouse, The monster was cornered. He struck the ground several times, causing a display of sparks in the air that kept the night feeder still. From there, he placed the tail into the unconscious Glavnus's mouth, kicked his throat, which set off a fire, and pulled it out of the red-hot blade. Using the blade like a spear, he threw it at the monster. He had just barely been able to see and threw. The blade hit and pinned the beast against the wall. It screamed in pain as its whole body went up in flames and burned away like a candle. Seeing the night feeder burn out, Rapper shot his fist into the air and cried out in victory. Back in the observation room, Cho was white-knuckling her chair as she watched the huge man win while Hatsum slammed his fist on the control table as he yelled, "Holy crap, he killed it! How are we going to take him down now?" Cho then rose from her chair, pressed several buttons on the controller, and grabbed a shotgun off the wall while saying, "I'll do it." "What?" Hatsum exclaimed back. She cocked the gun and firmly stated, "I'm gonna go in there and blast his head off." Hatsum got between her and the exit door and told her, "Are you crazy? He's a gangster." Cho put him aside, knowing the door was an automatic timer, and she hurriedly said, "I'm a soldier. No punk-ass petty criminal is gonna beat me. I've taken on guys like him before." "Wait, I have a better plan," Hatsum offered, trying to think fast, only for the woman to ignore him as she made her way to the testing chamber door. "Ah, nuts, I better go get it before she gets herself killed," he said to himself while also running out of the room. After Rapper announced his victory, he used the glowing tail once more to light his way through the dark room. When he found a smaller chamber door exit, he prepared himself to punch the sturdy metal door and called out, "Knock, knock." But just before he could hit the door with all his might, the lights went on, nearly blinding him, and the door opened by itself, with Cho standing there with the barrel of a shotgun pointed to his face as she yelled, "It's death!" But Rapper wasn't going to be done in by something like this, and quickly jumped out of the way of the gun as it was fired. Still blinded by the light, he had to cover his eyes and try to make an evasive maneuver as he could not get a shot. He heard the gun go off time and time again as he jumped, dodged, and rolled around until his eyes adjusted again. During his frantic escape, he heard the scientist yell at him, "Stop squirming, so I can blast your head off." After a while of wild dodging, Rapper finally adjusted to the light. He used the opportunity to jump behind the unconscious body. Once there, he peeked through and saw Cho reloading the gun. Taking the chance, he once again threw the animal bodies in the hopes of crashing her. But then he went to see the results. He only saw nothing under the huge creature. He wondered for a moment what would happen to her until he heard the sound of a gun cocking behind him. He slowly turned around and saw the one-eyed man with a barrel right to the back of his head, looking smug. Unfortunately, when she pulled the trigger, nothing happened. It jammed. Losing his momentary fear of life, Rapper pointed at her while laughing, "Ha!" But the moment didn't last long, as the woman held the shotgun by the barrel and used it like a bat as she whacked it across the man's face. She knocked him to his knees and knocked him across the face again. This time he arched back, and she jumped onto his shoulders, using the leverage to change her grip close to the gun, and smacked him across the face several times until Rapper grabbed and threw her off. After shaking the pain from his legs, Rapper reached into his open mask and felt his face, noting how blood was leaking down from it. He smiled wildly and cracked his neck in excitement. Cho tried to come in with another blunt attack, but Rapper sidestepped and punched her in the side while grabbing the gun from her hands. Cho went flying, and when she was on the ground, Rapper considered the weapon in his hands. Cho got back up to her feet, rolled her shoulders, and took a fighting stance in front of the huge man. Rapper smiled excitedly at this. The two of them engaged. The whole fight between them was more of a cat-and-mouse style fight. One is bigger and slower and harder to take damage, but the other is smaller and faster and able to hit, but not hard enough. Rapper, even though he could move much faster, was enjoying his time sparring with the spunky, serious, and one-eyed woman. After a while of this back and forth, Rapper decided to end it, but underestimating Cho was his first mistake. As he tried to hit her with a hard, fast punch, she ducked, sidestepped, and grabbed his arms, using the momentum of the attack to fling him over her shoulder. Rapper hit the ground hard and choked back his attack one more time, driving her heel into his attack and head several times until she finally decided to shove her heel into his throat. But before she could pierce him, Rapper grabbed her limb and tossed her away. Rapper got to his knees and breathed heavily. But Cho didn't give him a second chance, as she began her assault on his face with a flurry of punches and kicks. This put her right in the range of his attack, and he proceeded to hit her with a full power attack. It connected, but instead of flying away and passing out as he expected, she had dragged her nail into his arms to keep herself anchored and still conscious. She looked up at him with messy hair, and blood trickled down her mouth, where she kicked him in the side of the head. Once she was stunned, she took out a piece of wire, jumped over him while hooking it around his neck, where the man stood up and suddenly began to choke. Cho pulled against him with all her might, and didn't even stop when he tried to pull the wire away from his neck or smash her into the wall. Come on, choke out already!" she groaned in despair as she fought against his stretch and her fluttering consciousness. Suddenly, the huge man changed tactics. He turned blue and jumped up while landing on his back, flattening the woman and freeing her ability to breathe. Once free, he rolled over, took time to refill his lungs. However, it didn't last long. He was knocked in the side of the head by the woman's heel and fell to the floor, seemingly out cold. Standing over him and breath ragged, Cho wiped the sweat from her face. She said, "Stay down." Just as she was about to leave the room, the huge man suddenly rose back from his seemingly unconscious state, and she whirled around and took up a fight stance while exclaiming, "Crap! What does it take to keep you down?" Rapper stumbled over to her, fell to his knees, swiftly grabbed her hands, and proclaimed, "Marry me!" Cho froze up and went silent as her brain short-circuited at the question, only managing to babble out, "What?" Rapper was exhausted and badly injured, but still managed to stay on one knee and talk through his breathless state. With gusto, he proclaimed, "I've never been in a fight like that before. No one has fought me like that. I'm in love with you. I love you, so please marry me." Cho's brain finally absorbed everything that was being said to her and came to her senses. She ripped away her hand while exclaiming, "You're crazy." "Crazy in love," Rapper said with a purr. "And I am coming," shouted the voice of Hatsum as he ran in with a large fish tank sitting on a trolley, grabbing the attention of both people. He then stopped short allowing the tank to fly off and towards Rapper, and he yelled, "Starro, I choose you!" The alien burst out of the tank and with a high-pitched screech latched onto the enormous man's face. He screamed, arrived on the ground as he struggled to pull the alien off his face, but suddenly he stopped just as quickly as it started, and he relaxed on the ground. Starro travelled from his face to his body, where he hooked himself around it. From there, Rapper opened his eyes and stood up, looking down at the two scientists. Hatsune came towards him and asked, "Starro, are you there?" Rapper raised a hand, then gave a thumbs up as the single eye on Starro smiled, causing Hatsune to fall on his butt and sigh. What a relief! After calming down from the tension, he jogged over to Joe, who was also resting on the ground. He held out his hand and asked, "You okay, Slugger?" "I'll live," Joe replied with a weak smile. She took his hand and was hoisted to her feet. She kicked off her heels and asked while pointing to Rapper, "So what do we do about him?" Looking over and seeing Rapper Starro test out his new body, Hatsune thinks for a second before saying, "I think we should." He never got the chance to finish as the entire building begins to violently shake, enough for the two scientists to be knocked down to their knees. After calming themselves down, Hatsune asked, "What was that noise?" Cho shakes out her nerves as a Rapper Starro helps them both back to their feet and offers, "Either Hankoya has been eating beans again, or something really, really bad is happening." Meanwhile, back with Izuku and Egon, the two of them were standing in a frozen mixture of astonishment and terror as they looked up at the new firm that Overhaul had created with his quirk and available materials around him. "Egon?" Izuku stared off. "Yeah?" "I think we're in way over our heads," Izuku told him. "I think so too." "Give me the girl!" Overhaul roared like an animal in his new unhinged and disgusting form. In his fit of rage, resentment, fear, and sadness, the villain went all out with what could only be considered a last-ditch effort, using every ounce of his willpower and power in general to create a whole new body around him. A hulking, misshapen tower of horror crafted from concrete and metal of the building he was still inside of, alongside the flesh of all his fallen men. The anomaly was well over 150 feet tall and looked like something only a crazed god would create to punish humanity. The two scientists were now exposed to the outside as the monstrous man stood above them, ready to crush them and their entire facility in a feeble-minded effort to reclaim what he had lost. And so it was that the true battle began for life and death. Blooper reel. Ha. 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 Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Go huh? Then you go put your tongue out and go huh. Then you go deeper huh. Then you go backwards more huh. Then you go huh 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 huh. Huh, huh, huh. Huh, 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 huh. Huh, huh, huh. Huh, huh. Oh, oh, oh. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a short chapter for the Super Saiyan series and leave a follow. Yeah, because it's a fan fiction, you can't really give kudos because it's not AO3, but give a follow, give a favorite, pop out the original fic, and enjoy and thanks for listening to my video. Yeah, I hope you liked my boop reel because like in the middle of my recording I just started going into villager noises because I just sometimes when I pronounce certain words it goes like who, and then I get the sound, so I go over and over again, and there's like an entire sentence of me saying for a while. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.